everyone, welcome back. This is Clémence with the Gourmandise School here for day 2 of bread camp. Thank you so much for your patience yesterday while we worked out all the technical stuff on Instagram. Thank you to Claire for figuring it all out, and Chrissy. And now we're back and we are ready to start the second day of bread making and working on our sourdough culture and exploring the world of enriched breads. So yesterday we made focaccia, and focaccia is a lean dough. So it's a dough that doesn't have any fat in it to get in the way of gluten proteins expanding to capture the gas from the carbon dioxide the yeast is giving off, or the steam when the bread is baking in the oven. So we're gonna focus on a really enriched dough. It doesn't have any butter in it, but it does have milk and cream and egg yolk, and it makes like a really, not dense, but really moist and like velvety kind of textured bread. We're going to learn how to shape buns here and cinnamon rolls. So you can double this recipe and end up with dinner and breakfast tomorrow morning. I hope everybody's carbo loading really well this week. My kitchen is full of bread. And we're going to follow the same basic principles we discussed yesterday about bread making, which is to first wake your yeast up, second make your dough, and then knead your dough. So we're not going to do a stretch and fold like we did yesterday. We're going to use the KitchenAid mixer for that. Then we're going to let it bulk rise. We're just going to let it rise in a blob. Then we're going to shape our bread and let it proof or do its second rising. And then we'll egg wash these because we want that lovely golden color on the top of our breads. And we'll bake them off. The buns are going to need some glaze because cinnamon rolls are really just a vessel for a glaze. And I'm out of cream cheese, which is what I usually use, but I do have a little bit of yogurt left. So we're going to make a yogurt and orange glaze to like pour on top of the buns when they're nice and warm, which is really lovely. But if you're ready to go, I'm ready to go. The recipe is underneath this post here, but I'm gonna walk you through it and we're gonna do it together, and I'll read it off for you so you can take notes if you need to. All right, let's get this show on the road. Ready to make milk bread? I am. Okay, this is our KitchenAid mixer. This is the dough hook. This is the attachment that you use to knead bread. So most of the mixers comes with 3 attachments. There's a paddle that's used for creaming, and then you have a whisk attachment, and that's just used for whipping, like cream and eggs. And the dough hook here mimics kneading. So this is what we use to get our bread dough going. All right, I've had this girl for quite a while. I really recommend getting them used on Craigslist. The older ones work really well. And let's talk about our ingredients. So we have cream here, heavy cream. We get our cream and milk and butter from Strauss. It's grass-fed and super high in fat, which is lovely. But I really just want you to use whatever you have in your kitchen. If you happen to have some random like soy milk and almond milk and a little bit of heavy cream for your coffee that you've saved, use the cream for this bread. But you know, message us hotline at thegourmandiseschool.com if you have questions about substitutions, and we'll get right back to you. So milk, cream, milk, sugar, and yeast are going to go in first because we want to wake up that yeast. And pour it in. There we go. Also, if you have yogurt, this can work as well in here. And some milk. There we are. Sugar, it's food for your yeast here. And our active dry yeast. So I used about a 1/3 cup of cream, about 3/4 of a cup of milk, about a teaspoon and a half of yeast, and our gram measurements are on the website, you'll see here. I'm gonna turn this up, and now I'm gonna get an egg yolk going in there. So I'm gonna crack my egg, open it up. This is a trick I learned from our dear assistant Dara. Hi Dara. She just cracks her eggs and picks up the yolk, and I found that this is a really great way to separate eggs. So I'm just going to use the egg yolk here. Here we go. And our last 2 ingredients are flour and salt. So you can use 2 2/3 cups of bread flour, or you can use half bread flour, half whole grain flour. And the whole wheat flour that I'm using in this recipe is called Sonora. It comes from Kristen Toll, our lovely mill here in Pasadena, and also from the Tehachapi Grain Project. They also grow Sonora. And it's not very strong wheat, but it's really lovely and delicate in flavor. And I really love its flavor in these milk buns. There's a great restaurant called Hatchet Hall here in Culver City that started out making these Sonora honey buns that I'll never forget. They were so good with this flour. So I'm gonna add my salt and my flour now. So I'm using half bread flour, half whole grain flour, or whole wheat flour rather. There we go. We're going to turn this on. Let me get this off real quickly. And we're going to knead this dough. We're going to knead it for like 3 to 5 minutes. And what we want is for those gluten proteins to start binding together and creating a lot of structure. The issue is that we've got a lot of fat in this recipe. And fat prevents gluten proteins from binding very efficiently. So you have to knead your enriched doughs a bit longer than you would your lean doughs. So we're just gonna keep this on. I hope you don't mind the noise, and then I'll show you how to tell when gluten structure is formed. We're gonna look for something called the window pane. We'll be stretching our dough to see if we can see light shining through it, and if we can, it means we've developed all the strength we needed to in our dough. Any questions so far? Just message us. Again, it's hotline@thegourmandiseschool.com, and we'll get all those answered for you. Okay. Let's take a look at our starter culture here. We started this yesterday. We mixed equal parts water and flour together, and then I covered it, put it by a window where it's a little bit warm to see if things would start fermenting. Remember, yeast lives everywhere. It lives in the air, it lives in your flour, it lives on your hands, and what we want to do is to kind of give it everything that it needs in order to wake up. So we gave it oxygen, we gave it water, and we gave it some food, which was in the flour. So I've got a little bit of fermentation already happening here. Take a look. See all those little bubbles there? Ooh, that means there's some yeast in there eating and burping out this carbon dioxide. But I need to see a lot more activity. So what I want to do is to get rid of about half of this. Some recipes for starting a sourdough culture will tell you to just keep bulking and keep adding more. I tend to find that just makes too much stuff. So I like to take about half of this away. I still leave a good amount in here. And again, I'm just using bread flour to get this going. There we go. And I'm going to give it equal parts water and flour. You can do this by sight. You want it to look like this thick kind of pancake batter consistency, or you can use a scale. It's not a make it or break it thing. I don't want you to overthink it if you don't have a scale. So I'm gonna pour in a little bit of water. I like to start with water first. Mix it up. Add in some flour. There we go. There we are. Mix it all up really well. Don't be afraid of really mixing this for quite a while, because the more oxygen you give this, the more help it's going to give the yeast cells that are in here. So you can whip this up real good. Learn this trick from Rose. Hi, Rose. So we're going to shake it up real good. There we go. And I'm just going to put this towel back on top here and put it back in a warm spot, and we'll take a look at it tomorrow to see if there's any more activity in there. But this is day 2 of our sourdough culture. It's not really a starter yet because it doesn't have enough yeast activity in here or a good rhythm yet. So we're just still getting those yeast cells to get to know each other, to get to replicate themselves, however you want to think about it. I'm gonna put this back by the window again. If it's really cold in your house, just kind of put it near your stove wherever you're working and cooking. Okay, let's take a look at our dough here and see if it's strong enough yet. All right, so here we are. I'm gonna get this off the dough hook. The fact that it's not tearing off the dough hook is a really good indicator that our dough is nice and strong. Okay, I'm gonna take some of my dough here, just a little bit of it, and stretch it from side to side and see if I can see light shining through it before it tears. You see that? It tore a little bit, but this is just absolutely strong enough for us to just let it rise. See the light shining through there? You can hold it up to the light, but I think you guys can see just fine. Our dough is nice and strong, so I'm just gonna cover this. I don't use a lot of plastic here, so I'm gonna put a plate on top of this and just let it sit for 1 hour. So it'll rise. So what's gonna happen is the yeast is gonna get really excited around all this liquid and all this sugar that's in here. and it's going to start replicating itself, releasing a gas called carbon dioxide, and then eventually you'll start to see big bubbles in your dough, and those the gluten proteins that you just developed into that strong web that are capturing the carbon dioxide and letting your dough rise. All right, so I'm going to take a minute to clean this up. There we go. And now, through the magic of television, we are ready to learn how to shape this dough. So let me show you what your dough is going to look like after 1 hour. Dun, da, da. So this is half whole grain, half bread flour. Look at this, it's beautiful. And I think what I want to do with you right now is to show you how to shape this into buns. We're going to be using this technique when we make our brioche dough in a couple of days, but it's really helpful in learning how to build tension in your bread. So I'm going to grab my handy little bench scraper. Here we are. And the scale. Or not. I'm going to divide this into 9 pieces. So for those of you who have a scale and who like to be very precise, you're going to weigh out about 60 grams, 60 to 65 grams of dough for each little bun. And I'm going to get a pie plate. There we go. To put our buns on, and there's a little bit of butter on the bottom here. Okay, so I'm going to divide this into 9 buns. So we're going to do 4, and then cut each of these in half. And I find it easiest when I'm not working with a scale to just steal a little bit from each of the 8 to make the 9th one. The smell is so sweet and lovely on this dough. There we go. Okay, you kind of feel them to feel if they're all about the same size, and you can steal from one and put it on another just to make them even. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to shape these buns one at a time. Notice how there's almost no flour. There actually is no flour on my surface. If you feel like your hands are a little bit sticky, flour your hands. The dough does not have a problem. You are the one with the problem. And so I'm going to encourage you to not flour your dough a lot because it's going to dry it out. Just flour your hands if you need to. Just grab a little bit and rub it on your hands. But you should be a-okay. This recipe is not super, super sticky. It's a little bit tacky, and that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to take each of these little buns. I'm going to flatten them out just a little bit. I don't want to squish them too much because I've got all that beautiful yeast activity. And I'm going to roll it up into a cylinder like this. Okay, now I've got all the seams on the bottom. And I'm going to take my pinky and my thumb and rest them on the table here and gently cup the rest of the bun. And I'm going to roll it like this so that we get a lot of tension in our dough. What I want is for all the seams to converge so there's only one little seam at the very bottom of the bun. So it went from looking really slack like this to taut. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday as we were doing our stretch and folds in the focaccia dough. But ideally, you want all your buns to grow like this. So you want all the gases to expand in the same direction upwards. And so you want to give your dough a little bit of structure and tautness in this way. And put them right here, okay? So I'm going to do a circle of 8 and the 9th one right in the middle. All right, so again, you're going to take your dough, roll it up into a cylinder, put your thumb and pinky on your counter, and just do that. Roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it. I don't want the dough to roll over itself. I want to keep those seams on the very bottom here. Deep, 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 deep. When we go to make our sourdough breads later this week, we're going to be using a lot of these methods, a lot of this shaping method in order to give ourselves a nice taut sourdough boule, which is a ball. That goes right in the middle there. Roll it up. See how all the seams are staying underneath? You'll be surprised how good little hands are in the kitchen for this. So if there's little ones in your kitchen, we love teaching bread classes to kids because they have sort of the perfect size hand for shaping. Okay, got one more coming. There we go. Make some room. And here's our last one. right. So we've got a lovely assortment of dinner rolls here. I'm gonna let these proof for 1 hour, and then we're going to egg wash and bake them. So, you ready? Another little magic of television moment. This is what they look like after 1 hour. They're so big. Do you remember yesterday when we talked about letting things rise really slowly in the refrigerator or really quickly at room temperature? The same thing applies here. You could shape these the night before and then let them rise really slowly while you're sleeping overnight, and in the morning you wake up, you turn your oven on, and you bake it straight from the fridge. So typically when I'm doing that, and we had a couple of questions about that on Instagram yesterday, when I am letting things rise really slowly in the refrigerator, I keep them in the fridge while the oven is preheating, and then I take them out and bake them straight from the fridge into the oven. Don't worry about taking it out, leaving it out again, and then putting it in the fridge. Go straight, if it looks like this, go straight from fridge to oven. It doesn't really affect the baking temp very long. Okay, so now I'm gonna egg wash because I really love that sort of golden color that you get on the top of the buns, and you get that from an egg wash. All I did was whisk 1 egg. That's it. If you want like a softer and thicker crumb or like glaze on top, you can add a little bit of cream to your egg wash, but I think just 1 egg with a little salt, because you really want to flavor the egg wash, is important. That trick I learned from the Tartine book, the first one, the baking book, and they just reissued it, and it's among my favorite baking books out there. The recipes all work really, really well. All right, here we go. A little bit more. And then once I have everything covered, and you notice I'm not like tapping hard, I'm just gliding. That's really key when you're doing an egg wash, is just to glide. I'm gonna go back in and make sure that all those little crevices are covered, because as your bread expands in the oven, you'll have these sort of like white areas that aren't covered with egg wash. So it's nice to just get into all those little crevices. And then if you want to, you can add sesame seeds on top. You can add poppy seeds, fennel seed, pearl sugar if you want to make these real sweet. We're going to eat these in a little bit with some chocolate, because that's my favorite way to eat milk bread. Right now, I think I'll sprinkle some sesame seeds on there. Just got to find out where they're at. Right here. So whatever you've got. There we go. So if you're planning on making some burgers on the barbecue or grilling some vegetables, these make really great buns for that. They're just sort of lovely pull-apart buns. Okay, let's do this. These are ready for the oven. I'm gonna pop these in, and now I'm gonna show you how to turn this dough into cinnamon rolls. Okay, so over here I have a 100% whole grain version of this milk bread dough, and I used a hard white wheat from Grist and Toll. So what we talked about in our Wheat 101 video, and you're always welcome to refer back to it, is that wheat comes in a couple of different categories. There are about 30,000 different varieties of wheat, and they all fall under categories like hard white, hard red, soft white, and so on and so forth. So I've got over here a couple of examples. This is Sonora. This is a soft white wheat. So soft wheat means it doesn't have a lot of good gluten strength. So if you're making a really, really tall bread, it's not very efficient, but it's really lovely and sweet and mild. And over here, I have a hard red. Look at the color of these wheat berries here. See how dark they are? Okay. And hard means that it's got a lot of gluten strength, so it's going to give us a nice tall loaf of bread. Over here, I also have a hard wheat, but it's a hard white. That means that we're gonna get good lift in our bread, but not of any of those like super intense dark whole wheaty flavors that we would get from hard red. Most of the whole wheat flour you're buying in the grocery store is made from hard red wheat. Sometimes you'll find things like white whole wheat, okay? Much milder in flavor, but still a good amount of strength. Okay, so cinnamon roll 101. Da, da, da. First, we need to make our filling. And that is made up of some lovely melted butter and brown sugar. So typically I'm using 1 cup of brown sugar for this amount, because I like a lot of brown sugar filling in here. 1 cup of brown sugar and a couple of tablespoons of melted butter. You don't want your mixture to feel too wet because then it'll get embedded into the dough and you don't get those lovely layers of like dough and like brown sugar cinnamony filling. So I'm going to grab myself a little tool, a fork perhaps, and mix these together. There we go. And we are out of cinnamon. Nobody on my block has cinnamon right now. So I added a little cardamom to the brown sugar. So you can make cardamom buns or, you know, like the sky's the limit or nothing, or, you know, do what you can. But we're sort of in this moment right now where we can't have everything that we want. And so we have to improvise, and that's okay. All right, there we go. Mix this all up. Okay, and now I'm gonna get ready to shape them. Whenever I'm shaping cinnamon rolls like this, I like to get my dough 3 times as long as it is wide. And you can use a rolling pin, but really your hands do a great job. Let me move this closer so you can see. Try not to squeeze, but think of your hands like we did yesterday as these flat open paddles that are doing the work for you. So I'm gonna stretch like so. There we go. Okay, and I'm gonna spread my lovely brown sugar mixture on. Get it on there. Maybe I did a little too much. That was a heaping cup of brown sugar. So I'm going to pull some aside. There we go. And I'm going to roll it up. And I'm giving it some tension by stretching and then folding it over. There we go. All right, I'm at the end here and I'm going to pull it. I'm going to stretch this dough here and pull it. If you want lots of small cinnamon rolls, you're going to roll it in this direction. If you wanted fewer, bigger ones, you would go bigger in this direction and more narrow here. Okay, here we are. There we go. Now I'm going to put the seam here on my counter and kind of bring this back in just a little bit. I'm going to grab another pie tin. It's got a little bit of butter on the bottom as well. And we're just gonna cut these and put these in the buttered pie tin. You can absolutely do your cinnamon rolls and your dinner rolls in a cake pan or even a cast iron pan. Use whatever it is that you have. There's no wrong way to do this. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 little rolls. I'm gonna open them up and punch them down a little bit. And these will take a little bit longer to look like they're expanding because these are made with 100% whole grain flour. I'm going to arrange them in the same way that I did the dinner rolls. And then we'll let them proof. I'm going to cut this one just a little bit. And then we'll bake them. No need to egg wash your cinnamon rolls. They're going to get a lovely glaze, which we're about to make in just a moment. So same thing, these are going to proof for about 1 hour at room temperature or about 8 hours in the fridge. Okay? Okay, I'm just going to clean up this surface really fast. And then we're going to make our glaze for the cinnamon rolls. My favorite part. Okay, so again, I am out of cream cheese, but that's okay. I still want like that tangy feel, so I'm going to use a little bit of this Strauss whole milk, a little bit of powdered sugar, and some orange juice. We have a ton of oranges that we grabbed from the farmer's market the other day, and we can't go through them fast enough, so I stole this one. I'm going to squeeze a little bit of it in here. If you have buttermilk at home, you could do this with buttermilk as well. Just something that's acidic and yummy. Okay, here we go. Mix those two up a little bit. And then add some powdered sugar. And taste. You might want it really sweet. You might not want it very sweet at all. So I'm going to leave it to you. I used about a half a cup of yogurt. And I'm going to add powdered sugar, the more powdered sugar I add, the thicker this is going to be. And I know it's really hard, but you want to wait till your buns cool down a little bit before you pour this glaze on top of them. There we go. And I think I used about a cup of powdered sugar here for a half a cup of yogurt and about a tablespoon of orange juice. Almost there. I want to get rid of any little lumps of powdered sugar. Okay. All right, I'm gonna put this away and then we're gonna get at this because this is my favorite part. Okay, where are my buns? Right here. You ready for this? We're gonna pour, oh yay, the glaze over the buns. So good. And the orange and the cardamom work really well together. So happy accident that we were out of cinnamon. But here we are. All right, I hope, that's a little bit messier than I like. I hope that you enjoyed today's class and that you send us some really cool sort of versions of how you are going to make your milk bread. Give us a call or an email rather at hotline@thegourmandiseschool.com if you have any questions, or tune in live to our 3 weekly Instagram live sessions where we answer all of your most pressing gluten-related questions. So to recap, we made milk bread and we used that dough to make dinner rolls. So we learned a little bit about surface tension in the shaping of our rolls. We also rolled it out into a rectangle, melted a little butter and brown sugar and spread it and just rolled it up, and then put that in a pie tin, but you can use almost any kind of tin you can imagine. And then we waited an hour and egg washed and baked them. If you have any questions about other flours that you can use to make this, feel free to give us an email or an Instagram message, but I used half Sonora in these and then some hard white wheat to make some of the other ones, and they're all like super delicious. So why don't we just tear into these right now so you can see the structure of these buns on the inside. Ooh. Milk bread in France is called pain au lait, milk bread, and in bakeries around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, kids will get warm pain au lait straight out of the oven, and then we take them and we open them up and we stuff them with chocolate on the inside. So Ruth, I'm begging you to send me some chocolate over, drop it on my doorstep, but because I'm really running low, but that is my favorite way to eat these. So anyway, enjoy them. Let us know how it goes when you make them, and we'll see you tomorrow for sandwich loaves. Bye.